Yesterday, before going to bed, you went to the kitchen to turn off the light, but unexpectedly decided to eat a couple of sandwiches. Today, you got out of bed with the intention of listening to a developing lecture, but half an hour later found yourself skipping through the stream. You planned for this week to learn 30 words of Spanish, but deep down, you already doubt that you'll manage it. You know perfectly well what to do and how to do it correctly and usefully, but you end up doing everything wrong. It's as if your actions are controlled by someone who isn't you, someone who's telling you that you're hungry, or lazy, or weak-willed, and you submit without a murmur to the silent voice that governs you. You know it's impossible. Crowds of unconscious zombies on the screen have long ceased to frighten even children. You know that every living thing on Earth controls its own actions. But now you're going to see why this may not be the case. On the head of this ant is the mushroom cordyceps. The peculiarity of this mushroom is that it completely subordinates the will of a still-living insect and uses it for its own purposes. It creates a nutrient base for its reproduction and leads the ant to inevitable death when the enslaved insect fulfills its function and becomes unnecessary to its host, the fungus. To manipulate the insect's behavior in this way, the fungus, having penetrated its spore into the ant's body, slowly, step by step, builds a complex cellular network inside its body, which gradually penetrates into all its internal organs, and at the chemical level controls every corner of the creature that was recently an ant. But now, this still-living ant zombie is crawling out of its colony. It's driven by the order of the cordyceps mushroom and is being sent to a specific place that the owner has determined for itself as the best for further reproduction. There, the ant finally freezes forever and provides the remains of its nutritious flesh for the fungus to germinate and its shell for its protection. The exact mechanism of how the fungus manages to take control of the ant's body is still unknown to scientists. But ancient fossils that have been found indicate that parasitic fungi of this species have continued to control the behavior of ants over the past 50 million years. Probably you're now calming yourself with the thought that we're not ants. We're not afraid of such effects. Our brain is much stronger than a mushroom. But remember, even in the 20th century, many diseases that previously only pigs, birds, or bats suffered from managed to mutate and adapt to the human immune system. Even the human immunodeficiency virus, just 40 years ago, was only observed in primates and avoided humans. Let's imagine that this parasite is slowly and imperceptibly trying to learn how to manipulate the human body. First, it would reproduce and build up its network, getting into all the internal organs, setting the structure for future changes. Then it would build up its mass and power in preparation for reproduction. Due to the interception of nutrient flows by the fungus, the person would be forced to eat more and more, trying to feed themselves and their owner. Then, the influence of cordyceps would begin taking control of the central nervous system and brain, and at this stage, the self-preservation instinct of the fungus would already dictate to the person, on the one hand, full confidence in their excellent health, and on the other hand, complete rejection of any examinations and medical procedures. And finally, the last stage. The fungus has gained enough power to completely enslave the human mind and develop the spores necessary for reproduction. In order to spread itself as widely as possible among people who could become new carriers, this dictator will force the zombie human to rush at others, bite, scratch, tear other people's flesh, spreading the infection. Absolute rage, blind hatred, No need to eat. No need to sleep. No need to relax. Dressing, washing, all of this is in the past.
Only serve your master and spread the new civilization to the whole world.
That's why in movies, zombies are so aggressive and all-destroying, and that's why they're finally killed by breaking their skulls. Apparently, this is where the thought center of the parasite mushroom will be located, and knowledge of this fact will undoubtedly be useful to us
when the zombie apocalypse comes.
But no one will break the skull of the first one infected. At first, they'll try to isolate, examine, treat. The first surviving victims will return home to their families and to work. Mushrooms are able to skillfully disguise themselves even from the human immune system and are incredibly resistant to the effects of drugs. The main thing will happen a little later, when here and there in the country there are outbreaks of such human rage and an unjustified thirst for violence. Of course, soon someone will be the first to assume the improbable and say the word epidemic. But by that time, the worst will have already happened. In the body of carriers, the infection will be flying to neighboring continents and beginning a countdown timer for our entire civilization. However, let's come back to reality. Today, the cordyceps mushroom is sold in pharmacies. It's used as a vitamin complex to strengthen the immune system, which gave me the idea that this mushroom isn't so dangerous as to cause a zombie apocalypse. But there are other, more unpredictable parasites. This is Toxoplasma gondii. This parasite, unlike cordyceps, doesn't need to kill its carrier for subsequent reproduction. Its strategy is more complex. It lives in the body of intermediate carriers, such as rodents, birds, and even humans, but it can only start reproducing in the body of an animal from the cat family. To move from the body of a mouse or rat to the body of a cat, it does the seemingly impossible. The parasite causes the rodent to demonstrate completely unnatural behavior. Rats and mice lose their fear of cats and go out to meet them in open space. The zombie rodent searches for the cat itself, goes to its death, and gives its owner, the mushroom that controls its brain, the opportunity to reproduce in the cat's body. The cat then spreads the parasite with its feces, where it persists for a long time waiting for a new host. And of course, the mechanisms that allow Toxoplasma to control the mind of an enslaved rodent are unknown to the scientific world, but it's proven that even people infected with Toxoplasma become more likely to develop schizophrenia, irrational behaviors, and unexplained fits of rage. What will become of a human when they find themselves in the place of the enslaved rodent? After all, rushing at people and biting them, as zombies usually do, would be pointless. We'd have to attack our pets. After all, the fungus requires the cat's body for reproduction. Cute videos of kittens will cause bloodlust in children and housewives. And our pets will have to run away from homes and apartments, stay away from people like their ancestors at the dawn of evolution, and earn their own food. However, perhaps in this way they'll save humanity, interrupting the chain of reproduction of Toxoplasma. But let's look at whether parasites need to control the brain and behavior of their victims. Are they really that weak and incapable of direct violence themselves? Before you is Septobasidium. The body of this mushroom is a maze that's located on a tree and consists of tunnels and chambers in which it's perfectly convenient for insects to find shelter. From the side of the mushroom, it looks like altruism. But no, the internal reservoirs of this fungus are filled with captured insects, tightly entwined in thin branching threads. From these prisoners that Septobasidium parasitizes, only their mouth parts are free. They use them to eat the forage plant which the fungus is located on, and the fungus in turn uses special threads to suck the nutrients from the insects. Need I add that the captive insects never escape the supposedly hospitable mushroom. Their rapid death is inevitable, and their relatives will soon be captured and placed in this vacant space. Yes, Septobasidium doesn't try to control the minds of its slaves. It doesn't need zombie insects. It's used to using brute force instead of elegant and unnoticeable intervention until the right hour. But this example shows that the capabilities of quiet and inconspicuous mushrooms can be much wider than we can assume, and they can have their own intentions for surrounding creatures. Today they prey on insects, but what happens if they mutate and switch to humans? Deadly danger in the most familiar places, houses becoming traps, millions of people in cocoons, teams of special forces with flamethrowers and chemicals burning out spores and bringing fire and death to the mushroom and the people enslaved by it. There's never been such a war in the history of mankind. Of course, no one knows 100% whether such scenarios are possible in our world, or whether the word mushroom will always bring to mind an innocent mushroom. But think about one fact. Right now, somewhere, for example in China, someone is eating the dead bodies of zombie ants with an appetite, along with the spores.